diplomacy is a key first step in ending the three-year conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Activists say more than 200 people in Sudan have been killed in the past 3 days as the Rapid Support Forces delay signing a political charter that could pave the way for a breakaway government. And one of the world's leading retailers, Walmart, is selling the African-themed Unity Girl dolls. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. The Trump administration is hailing talks in Saudi Arabia that included Russian officials, but no Ukrainians. The White House says the parallel track diplomacy speaking separately with the warring partners is a key first step in ending the three-year war conflict that has locked Europe. VOA White House correspondent Anita Powell reports from Washington.
The negotiating table to end the brutal war in Ukraine was set as officials from Washington and Moscow, but not Kyiv, sat down Tuesday in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to hash out Ukraine's future. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the two sides agreed broadly on embassy staffing and on creating a high-level team for peace talks. At his estate in the U.S. state of Florida, President Donald Trump expressed optimism and batted away criticism that Ukraine should have been invited.
I think I have the power to end this war, and I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
Trump also noted that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's approval ratings have fallen from their sky-high levels at the start of the conflict and hinted at a negotiating condition.
When they want a seat at the table, you could say the people have to, wouldn't the people of Ukraine have to say, like, you know, it's been a long time since we've had an election. That's not a Russia thing. That's something coming from me and coming from many other countries also.
In the Turkish capital of Ankara, Zelensky lobbied to be included in all talks, alongside partners like the European Union and Turkey.
I am convinced that for Ukraine and for our region, for Europe, it is critical that any negotiations to end the war are not happening behind the backs of the key parties affected by the Russian aggression.
Russia's foreign minister dismissed the idea of enlarging the table.
The European philosophy hasn't gone anywhere, so I don't know what they should do at the negotiating table. If they are going to whistle out some cunning ideas about freezing the conflict while actually intending, as is their custom, nature and habit, to continue the war, then why should we invite them at all?
Analysts say they see some logic to that, with Kyiv and Moscow so far apart.
There's a little bit of overwroughtness about how the Ukrainians are being cut out from Riyadh and so forth. It's just the situation is not entirely clear, but a parallel track diplomacy is not optimal, but not necessarily terrible, considering how far apart the sides actually are.
Trump has spoken openly about some of his terms, which some analysts question.
The one criticism that I would levy at the Trump administration is that I think it has given away too much, even before any serious discussions have taken place, saying no U.S. boots on the ground, no NATO membership. This is all putting the cart before the horse, because we need to get a deal to stop the killing.
Rubio said talks would continue, but didn't say whether the next round would include Ukraine. Anita Powell, VOA News, Washington.
14-year-old Gesma fled Sudan's Darfur region after armed militias killed her parents and brother, leaving her to care for her younger siblings. Now living in a refugee camp in Chad, she works long hours to keep her family fed, a reality faced by many children displaced by brutal violence in Darfur. Henry Wilkins reports.
14-year-old Gesma arrived in this refugee camp on Chad's border with Sudan's Darfur region 2 years ago. She says she fled Darfur after ethnic Arab militias killed her mother, father and brother. VOA is withholding her last name to protect her identity.
They killed my little brother. After that, they caught me and then released me. I saw a lot of dead people when we were traveling along the road.
She made the journey to Chad with only her younger siblings and her stepfather. Now she works in kitchens and waitresses at a restaurant here in the town of Adre.
I wash clothes and clean furniture too. This is my work. The money I earn, I give to my family so we can buy food.
She says she is the sole breadwinner for the family, including her stepfather, who is unemployed. Social workers in Adre told VOA that teenage girls like Gesma, who work at local night spots, are often subject to abuse by their employers and customers. UNICEF, the UN's children's agency, says child labour in Adre is a major problem.
It's very difficult to have a clear statistics on this, but it is an issue. It is a big issue.
Many children can be seen making mud bricks and working in markets all over Adre. Kazato says that if they're working, they're not only exposing themselves to potential danger, but are also missing out on their education and, perhaps most importantly, their childhoods. She says children who arrive with no caregivers are especially vulnerable to exploitation.
So children who arrived either completely alone, so with no care, without caregivers, like without parents or without any other relative, or and those are the most vulnerable because they really arrived alone.
Gesma says she just wants things to go back to the way they were in Darfur, when she used to hang out with her friends.
My friends were killed. There were 3 of them. I used to go to school with them.
With so many of those she loved gone, and the responsibility of providing for her younger siblings, there is little hope for a return to normality. Henry Wilkins, VOA News, Adre, Chad.
The Trump administration is asking for Mexico's assistance in stemming the flow of the synthetic drug fentanyl across the border into the United States. High-tech scanners were installed last year at a port of entry in the U.S. state of Arizona to detect the illegal drug. VOA senior Washington correspondent Caroline Presutti reports from that port where she was given exclusive access to the scanner's control room.
I was right here. I was facing this direction, and I remember hearing your voice come up behind me.
Donnie McKillop's wife Jasmine found him here at this bus stop in Tucson, Arizona. Then they each held their breath, and the world went silent for just a moment.
I thought you were going to yell at me and scream at me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
McKillop was back on fentanyl. He'd been missing for 6 months.
I turned to fentanyl because I couldn't find heroin, and it was easy to find.
Fentanyl is cheap and potent, but the high is brief, leaving the user constantly on the hunt to buy more. McKillop was paying about $1 a pill and using up to 20 a day. More than likely, McKillop's pills were smuggled through here, the Nogales-Mariposa port of entry. It's the closest U.S.-Mexico border crossing to his house. These scanners x-ray the trucks to look for drugs. Low energy beams for the cab, where the driver sits. Higher energy for the trailer and its cargo. These machines were installed at this crossing last year. Because drivers no longer have to stop and get out, the port has gone from scanning 100 trucks a day to 700.
It would look like this, like a floor.
Border officers then analyze the scan and look for something odd. VOA was given an exclusive look at the control room to see how the government discovers fentanyl.
They noticed that the floor seems a lot more dense. It looks darker in the x-ray than the previous truck did. That's an anomaly.
Each of these little squares is a packet of drugs. Now see if you can find the narcotics here. The round shadows are the cargo. It's a truck of melons. See anything out of place?
The contraband is here.
These rectangular packages on the floor of the trailer are the drugs. Passenger cars drive through regular border checks. Some are sent for a more thorough search. Others go through scanners that transmit the images to Officer Alejandro Bachiller.
They tend to load up these cars with the fentanyl pills in the doors, in the firewall, the quarter panels.
Fentanyl seizures doubled every year in the past 5 years. Customs officers here and at all the Nogales ports found 60% of that fentanyl. Earlier this month, the Mexican government agreed to send 10,000 troops to stop the flow of migrants and illegal drugs at its border. U.S. President Donald Trump brokered the deal in exchange for delaying tariffs on Mexico. Ramirez says the street price of fentanyl is reportedly going up.
So that tells you that the demand is there, but we're hurting the supply.
Did you show
him? We didn't do it today.
McKillop suggests Americans stop stigmatizing people addicted to drugs.
Once I realized that my family was there, my family still loved me, that hope was sparked again.
And now he's hoping his days of addiction are behind him.
It feels good.
Carolyn Pursuti, VOA News, Tucson, Arizona.
Activists say attacks by Sudan's rapid support forces have killed more than 200 people over the past 3 days as the paramilitary group delays signing a political charter that could pave the way for a breakaway government. The RSF controls most of western Sudan and parts of Khartoum, but it is losing ground in central Sudan to the army. Sid Ahmed Ibrahim sent us this report, narrated by Philip Alexiou.
The flag of Sudan waves in the wind, vehicles blown up and destroyed along a road in this village not far from Khartoum's largest oil refinery. This is the aftermath of rapid support forces taking over the villages of Sheikh al-Kabashi and al-Jali city until the Sudanese army fought back to reclaim the territory and control of the oil. Aisha Ibrahim Ismail is thankful to God for the Army's great victory.
We thank Allah that today we are celebrating victory of the entrance of the military and the good victories at Jali. We trust the Sudan armed forces from long time ago that they are capable of victories. They are the ones who defeated rapid support forces and the militias. We are told the army has crushed them. We ask the Almighty God to protect the Sudanese citizens wherever they are.
The fighting from Bahri to the General Command Headquarters was controlled by the RSF, then taken back by the Army. But the presidential palace to the west remains in control by the Royal Support Forces. The people of North Bahri suffered from the fighting as the RSF looted villages and killed many of the residents, according to the locals. Mohammed Abdul Wahab Al-Kabashi is a North Bahri citizen.
We are going through tough times in the hands of rapid support forces and the invading forces. They dispersed us, killed us, stole our property and entered our houses and took our money. They have devastated our lives. We are living in a hopeless life. Our children are all over the place. Our wives and the elderly and the sick have all moved out of this area. Thanks to God, we are now happy, and especially Kabashi victory. We thank the Sudanese armed forces for this great victory, which has come at the right time.
As the war goes on and international mediation efforts are not working, the Army will continue fighting and trying to regain captured areas from the rapid support forces. The RSF denies reports about the withdrawal of its forces from the areas they say they've taken. Mohammed Osman Olusein is the chairman of the Sudanese Army staff.
This juncture begins with new history for the nation of Sudan and her citizens, where the Sudan armed forces have defeated all the evil forces against the nation. This juncture also marks the coming back of Sudanese from their places of displacement and countries of refuge back to Sudan by God's mercy. This also marks the beginning of the Sudan armed forces taking control of the areas in our country. From now on, the army will focus on its new role with new spirit, zeal, and knowledge of warfare.
خرب ودمر وقتل ونهب ولم يبغي شيء وراه من الفساد.
The war in Sudan is nearly 2 years old, and the displacement of millions of Sudanese people living in miserable conditions continues. They're facing starvation, according to the United Nations. Many people lacking food and basic necessities, even within the camps scattered about the country. For Sid Ahmed Ibrahim, I'm Philip Alexio, VOA News.
Would like to take a moment to remember a longtime VOA colleague. Lisa Schlein passed away a few days ago in Geneva, Switzerland. Many of you watching and listening to our programs know Lisa as a dedicated journalist covering the United Nations. She brought to the world the news about the UN, the World Health Organization, UNICEF, the World Food Programme, and many other agencies important to people worldwide. Lisa reported for VOA from Geneva for more than 3 decades. We at VOA will miss her professionalism, her dedication, and her friendship. Still to come, Google breaks a long-standing policy. We'll explain after this break.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, the Central African Republic launched a meme last week. It soared to heights and then crashed. This is just one of the most recent examples of cryptocurrency investments that is on the rise in Africa. But what is cryptocurrency? Who stands to gain? Who controls it? Who is investing in it? Join me, Vincent McCory, for an in-depth discussion on cryptocurrency in Africa.
They tried to forget everything they left behind while calming their thoughts in the process. This is what women and girls try to do to cope with the mental health crisis they are enduring amid a relentless war in the eastern DRC. On this week's episode of Our Voices, we zoom in on the effects of the brutal conflict in the eastern DRC has on women, how they're coping, and how they are trying to ease their mental anguish. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
In other news, South Africa is hosting a meeting of foreign ministers from the G20 group of major economies on Thursday and Friday. But the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced on X earlier this month that he would not attend the meeting in Johannesburg because he objects to the meeting's agenda, which he described as anti-American. Ugandan opposition figure Kizza Besigye appeared briefly in a civilian court as attorneys tried to secure his freedom, but a judge said he was too unwell to follow proceedings. Visibly frail, Besigye's continued detention is attracting more attention as his supporters, activists, and others warn that he needs medical care and should be removed from prison conditions. And Uganda has discharged the last 8 patients who have recovered from Ebola, according to health authorities. Officials say there were no other positive cases in the outbreak declared last month. The World Health Organization describes their recoveries as a milestone that could reflect the power of Uganda's quick and coordinated response. Google recently broke with its long-standing policy against developing artificial intelligence weapons. VOA's Matt Debo reports from Silicon Valley.
For years, Google, the technology giant founded with the principle of don't do evil, included on its website a commitment against developing weapons and technologies that cause harm or can be used for surveillance. But last week, that language was removed from the company's AI principles page. Google, whose parent company is Alphabet, did not immediately reply to a request for comment for this story. A blog post by Google leadership explaining the new policy said, "There's a global competition taking place for AI leadership within an increasingly complex geopolitical landscape. We believe democracies should lead in AI development." Some observers see the move as evidence that the company is now openly promoting its artificial intelligence technologies for use in warfare. AI is increasingly used on battlefields, from Ukraine to Gaza, and Silicon Valley tech companies, once averse to seeing their tools used for destructive purposes, have been backing away from long-standing policies against military use. OpenAI, Meta, and Anthropic all have AI projects with the U.S. military or defense contractors. AI is primarily used in determining targets for drone strikes, in some cases in a fully autonomous weapon. Leading AI researcher Stuart Russell, an autonomous weapons opponent, attended the AI Action Summit in Paris.
Increasingly, the progress of the war in Ukraine is dictated by the use of either remotely operated drones or fully autonomous drones. That's been a radical change. So I think many military strategists think that without this kind of capability, you just can't fight a modern war.
Google's connection to the military is not new. In 2017, despite the company's stated principles, it helped build a targeting system called Project Maven for the U.S. Department of Defense. A year later, after thousands of employees protested, Google ended the contract. More recently, critics say Project Nimbus, a $1.2 billion contract between Google, Amazon, and the Israeli government for cloud computing services, was used for surveillance and targeting in the Gaza war. For Russell and other observers, Google's shift in policy was concerning.
You have to assume that it's not a coincidence that this change in policy comes with a new administration that has removed all the regulations on AI that were placed by the Biden administration and is now placing a huge emphasis on the use of AI for military prowess.
As AI advances rapidly, governments and businesses alike are increasingly worried about falling behind. Matt Dibble, VOA News, Oakland, California.
Nigeria-based Alden Toys, a leading manufacturer of Unity Gold dolls, has expansion plans for the retail toy space. Technology correspondent Paul Ndiho joins us now to tell us more. Hello, Paul.
Hello, and thanks, Esther. Alden Toys is expanding into the retail toy market with a multi-million-dollar complex that aims to transform how children and families shop for toys in Nigeria and beyond. The company plans to create a fun atmosphere for kids to enjoy their shopping experience. Earlier, I spoke to Alden CEO, Paul Olajeka, about his company's future.
Alden Toy has been, for the past 25 years, selling toys mostly on the wholesale space. And then we've been servicing all the big departmental stores across Nigeria and West Africa. But of recent, there's also been some downturn in terms of the fortunes of these big retail stores. The South African chain stores, they are leaving the country. So as a business, we felt like now that they are leaving, we needed to make maximum advantage of what has befallen them. So we felt like now it's the time for Alden to move into the retail space. You know, we are navigating from the wholesale space like we have in the commercial nerve center of Lagos, which the Dumota market, which we visited before. You know, the hustle and the bustle. It's a lot of billions of trade happening there. So, but now we're moving into the retail space in very high street part of Lagos. And it's going to be our first flagship store. And the whole idea is not to create a space for toys to be sold, but also to give children that experience of what it is to be in a toy shop. So we are bringing something different out of what has been seen in Nigeria so that we can actually give the kind of quality toys that every Nigerian child deserves.
You're trying to bring other key players in the toy business on board. What does that take for an average person or for some of these key players who are going to be joining you to make this happen?
It's actually a big window that these big players have been looking to get into the Nigerian space, you know, through the kind of environment where their toys will be showcased to the Nigerian child. Alden Toys, as a company, we take all the decision. We know what the Nigerian child yearns for. We know the kind of quality that they want. But most of the time, because we need to rely on a third party to sell these products, we are unable to bring in those quality items into the country. So right now, we just came back from the big fair in Nuremberg, the biggest toy fair in the world. The whole idea is that we went there to meet all the big players and we showed our ideas about the retail experience center that we're building. And everybody's been scrambling to get a square meter, you know, to showcase their products. These big players are willing to come in, support with merchandising, also what with some technical expertise, so that when we do this, remember, we've not played in the retail space. So we also need some technical, partnerships with these big brands, so that at the end of it all, we'll be able to give Nigerian children the kind of quality toy that they've been yearning for. And we're excited about not just bringing in this item, they're also willing to come in and set up factories, assembling plants, where we can, integrate these items and scale the business into full production in Nigeria.
Aldon Toys also have transcended borders. You are one of the first, probably one of the very few African entrepreneurs who have their products listed on Walmart, the biggest retail store in the world, and you having your products online is a big deal.
At the moment we launched our product, it scaled up our business, and I will tell you, there's been a big yearn for diversity, with the American space and even Europe, So I think we're bringing something that is filling the gap, where there's lack of diversity in the range of dolls that these big brands sell. So it was easy for us to pitch it to Walmart, and they bought the idea, and they didn't just buy only the doll, but they bought the underlying impact that our doll has been making over the last years. So for us, Walmart felt this is the kind of partnership, the kind of brand that they will bring on board, that as they bring in our products into their own online space, they know that partnership is also yielding back positive results and positive impact in the Nigerian community. So for us, it's been when you position for value, this kind of big brand will chase you, money will chase you, and a lot of awards will always come your way. And we won so many awards, it's been incredible. We can't even keep count, because we've transcended from just profit-driven organization to a value-driven one.
How can other entrepreneurs maybe borrow from an example to reach that, that goal?
Over the years, we've been constant. We didn't launch into the chasing Walmart. We were focused on making the impact on the Nigerian space. And from there, we started making the impact on the African space, And from there, we started making the impact even on the global space before Walmart came on board. So we didn't just set out hoping to hit big in Walmart, but rather to grow our business. So we saw our entrepreneurial journey as a marathon.
That was Paul Orajika, CEO of Aldon Toys, based in Lagos, Nigeria. That's today's Tech Report. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you, Paul. Be sure to join Paul and Diho each Wednesday for another tech segment right here on Africa 54. That's our show for today. Be sure to join Africa 54 and watch on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.